how do you show an audience that a character is entirely walled off without having them speak a single line of dialogue? In the short film Failure to Thrive, the production team faces this exact problem with their protagonist, Clarisse. They have to communicate her intense internal isolation purely through the space around her. They achieve this by treating the set as an environmental visual blueprint, where every prop, lens choice, and lighting cue is calculated to reflect a specific psychological state. Decoding these specific visual variables is the only way to truly understand the hidden emotional reality of a character who refuses to let anyone in. The filmmakers start by anchoring Clarisse's modified e-bike against a cold chain-link fence. They've pulled the warm greens from the color grade, pushing cool blues and bruised purples into the autumn sky. By draining the natural warmth from the foliage, the frame renders the landscape as a site of decay, visually signaling a sense of biological stagnation. They combine this deadened color palette with a locked-off, wide 35mm lens. This focal length and rigid camera placement physically forces a wide, unbridgeable distance between the subject and the audience. That distance carries directly into Clarisse's interior workspace at Maison Esthétique, where she surrounds herself with what production notes call hardware as emotional armor. We can see that armor mapped out in this 3D wireframe of her workbench. She uses raw, hand-soldered telemetry gear built on top of a scarred oak bench. A dense physical barrier of sharp tools and monitors forms a walled perimeter around a single central chair, externalizing her desperate effort to control her environment. Notice how the lighting simulation shifts. The production drops the ambient light and hits that central chair with a harsh green light, mimicking the flare of a cathode ray monitor. This paints Clarisse as a machine running diagnostics to measure her own uptime. The camera then positions thick, hanging cable harnesses and hardware racks directly in the foreground of the shot. These elements act as physical bars, trapping the character within her own apparatus. This rigid, claustrophobic framing creates an immense amount of visual tension. This structure is entirely unsustainable, a mechanical defense mechanism that is primed to collapse. That collapse arrives in Act 3. Clarisse's internal crisis boils over, and the film manifests it physically as a catastrophic environmental system failure. All the strict visual rules established in Act 1 are instantly destroyed. The locked-off, stable wide shots are thrown out, replaced by a chaotic, unpredictable handheld camera rig that injects raw, unstable energy into the frame. The lighting pivots just as violently. The cold, even studio practicals are killed completely. The frame drops into deep, disorienting shadows, pierced only by intense red warning flares hitting the camera sensor. The physical set itself reacts to the crisis. Production riggers drop atmospheric smoke and blow spark caps inside the functional relays, making the technology mimic Clarisse's internal breakdown. By violently dismantling her carefully constructed technological armor, the filmmakers strip away Clarisse's control. The environment rejects her mechanical isolation, forcing her into a state of raw vulnerability. In the immediate aftermath of this total system failure, a secondary character, Laurie Jean, enters the smoking studio. In this top-down blocking diagram, Laurie Jean inserts her body directly into the line of sight between Clarisse and the broken hardware. As the camera pivots down to eye level, it locks into a balanced horizontal two-shot. The technology is stripped from the foreground entirely. This spatial rebalancing leaves nowhere for the protagonist to hide. The visual architecture forces both Clarisse and the viewer to engage with human connection rather than a technological escape. This brings us to Act 5 and the final state of the studio. The chaotic breakdown is gone, replaced by an organized, warm wood desktop illuminated by a soft amber tungsten lamp. The dense tangles of wires and high-stress equipment have been removed. In their place, the production design centers personal artifacts, a tea mug and an open notebook resting exactly at center stage. The camera trades the rigid wide angles for a long, slow 85mm prime lens. This tightens the field of view, creating an intimate, unobscured space that gives the character room to finally rest. The final shot captures the reflection of those warm interior studio lights, focused through rain-streaked glass, overlapping with the outside city grid of Stevens Point. This specific composite image visually unites Clarisse's internal sanctuary
with the grounding reality of the world outside her window. Masterful cinematic environments are dynamic psychological blueprints, allowing the audience to physically feel a character's capacity to heal.